The year was 1814. Napoleon, the scourge of Europe, had finally been defeated, yet the news brought little comfort to the young American Republic. The War of 1812 still raged on the North American continent. American leaders feared the British would unleash their full might. These fears were not unfounded. British veterans were now being dispatched to Canada. For the United States, a critical moment had arrived. The Niagara frontier was a vulnerable point in American defense. Major General Jacob Brown was given command in the region. Brown knew he had to act quickly to counter the British threat. He planned to invade Upper Canada and capture Fort George. In early July 1814, Brown put his plan into action. He led a force of about 4,000 men across the Niagara River, surprising the British garrison at Fort Erie and capturing the fort with minimal resistance. With Fort Erie secured, Brown turned his attention northwards, towards the Chippewa River, where he expected to encounter the main British force in the region. Leading the advance was Brigadier General Winfield Scott, a young but promising officer known for his discipline and tactical acumen. Scott's brigade, composed primarily of regular U.S. Army soldiers, was well trained and eager for a fight. As they marched towards the Chippewa River, they encountered a contingent of British troops and Canadian militia under the command of Major General Phineas Ryle near Streets Creek. A sharp skirmish ensued, with Scott's artillery, expertly handled by Major Jacob Hindman, inflicting heavy casualties on the British and forcing them to withdraw. The American victory at Streets Creek, though a relatively small engagement, boosted American morale and gave them control of the approaches to the Chippewa River. Following their success at Streets Creek, Scott's brigade reached the south bank of the Chippewa River on July 3rd. Across the river, they could see the British forces, commanded by Ryle, deployed in a strong defensive position. Ryle had chosen his ground well. The Chippewa River, though not particularly wide, had steep banks, and the surrounding terrain was mostly open farmland, offering little cover for an attacking force. Undeterred, Brown and Scott began to formulate their plan of attack. They knew that a frontal assault across the open ground would be costly, so they sought a way to outmaneuver the British and strike them from a more advantageous position. Section 4. The battle joined cannon fire and tactical maneuvers. The Battle of Chippewa commenced in the late afternoon of July 5th. Brown, seeking to draw the British out of their defenses, ordered Scott to make a demonstration against their lines. Scott, deploying his artillery on a rise overlooking the river, unleashed a furious bombardment on the British positions. The British artillery, though outnumbered, responded in kind, and for a time, a fierce artillery duel raged across the Chippewa River. While this artillery exchange was taking place, Brown dispatched a portion of his force under the command of Brigadier General Peter B. Porter on a flanking maneuver. Their objective was to cross the Chippewa River upstream and attack the British left flank, catching them in a pincer movement. Section 5. The decisive charge and British retreat. As Porter's brigade moved into position, Scott, seeing an opportunity, ordered his own brigade to advance across the Chippewa River. The American soldiers, formed in close order, advanced steadily towards the British lines, withstanding heavy musket fire. Scott, a strict disciplinarian, had drilled his men relentlessly, and their training paid off in the heat of battle. They maintained their formations and returned fire with precision. Seeing the Americans advancing, Ryle ordered his own troops forward to meet them. The British, confident in their fighting prowess, charged into the fray. However, Scott had anticipated this move. He had skillfully positioned his regiment so that they could deliver a devastating crossfire on the advancing British. The effect was immediate and deadly. Seizing the momentum, Scott ordered his men to fix bayonets and charge. The Americans, with a roar, surged forward, crashing into the British lines. The British, taken aback by the ferocity of the American assault, began to give ground. Soon their retreat turned into a rout. Section 6. Aftermath and Significance. The Battle of Chippewa was a resounding victory for the United States Army. Though the battle lasted less than an hour, both sides sustained significant casualties. American losses were around 350, while British casualties were over 500. The Battle of Chippewa was a pivotal moment in the War of 1812. It proved the United States Army could match the British Army and win. The victory bolstered American morale and shattered the myth of British invincibility.